Here we go, we're recording. So, good morning. Hi, I'm Claire from Red to Green. Thanks for meeting me this morning. Could you just introduce yourself and what you do, please?
Okay, good morning. My name is Dave Cross, and I'm part of the Digital Inclusion Programme, which is being run by World Age UK.
Lovely, thank you. So what does your current volunteer role include?
Okay, I started to volunteer the middle of last year during the first phase of the lockdown, etc. And in conjunction with Donna, I actually volunteered my services to take out the tablets to the clients and to collect the tablets from the clients when they no longer wish to have them. So in a nutshell, we deliver the tablets or collect them, and then we assist the clients to use the tablet to the best of their abilities.
Who are your main sort of group of clients?
Well, World Age UK, as the name suggests, it is more so for the elderly clients on the Wirral. However, due to the present situation we're in, we're finding an awful lot of clients now becoming slightly younger. So I've delivered them out to 30-year-olds who, for whatever reason, they are not as fortunate as you and I, perhaps, and they are in isolation. They haven't got the same sort of avenues to explore as you and I could possibly do. So they're alone and they need to have communication for the well-being of their mind, and obviously to do online shopping, etc. We do an awful lot to the elderly people as well. It certainly opened my eyes to the various people on the world who need assistance in this manner, and it's been a great eye-opener. It really has.
So, having your background as you do, has your use changed through your volunteer role and just through the pandemic in general? Have you found yourself using different avenues?
I think my use has changed in so much as that how I use the system has changed. It hasn't made me change in what I use, but I'm now using it with more cogs of my brain turning, so that what I take for granted, as in 2 and 2 is 4, I now have to say, okay, 2 and 2 is 4, so that I can explain to somebody remote from me who cannot see me how to do what you and I would perhaps consider to be a very mundane, easy task. I can assure you, which I'm sure you're well aware of anyway, that's to various people, even turning it on is a great problem.
So the people you support, what's the main thing that they've been using your help and the technology that you provided? What have they been using it for?
Starting with my help, the help is to explain what the tablet can do, offer up the suggestions of what they need given their circumstances, and try and get them to understand in a nice possible term how easy it actually is. For the actual clients themselves, I would say 90% of them want it for company, as in to talk to friends either verbally via the meetings. A lot of them do MTs with the organisation for welfare support, trying to find new houses, flats, social benefits, etc., etc. But an awful lot of want to do because they live on their own and they are desperate for some sort of company. And I have said during my preliminary discussion with them that you can do A, B, C, D, and one of those letters was you can talk to the doctor if you can't get to the doctor's appointment. I spent 22 years in the military, and then I went in the offshore oil and gas game, and then I came as an offshore construction manager. I came back into Civilian Street, and then I went over to America to work with special forces, coaching and management. And my life was all very easy and very rosy. And it wasn't until I sat at home thinking, what can I do to give something back, that I actually got involved with this particular project. And I am so pleased that I have to give something to people who are very, very less fortunate than myself. And I take my hat off to all the other members of World Age UK team and others around the country, and obviously any supportive nature like your good selves. I think it's marvellous what we all do, and long may it continue, and support off, the government and other nice people who give us money, etc., etc.
Hi, thank you for meeting with me today. I'm Claire from Red Screen, and could you just introduce yourself for me, please?
Yeah, I'm Paul Ainscoe. I'm a digital buddy for Age UK.
So what does your current volunteer role involve you doing?
I've got several clients who vary in levels of knowledge with digital work with their iPads. So my role really is to bring them up, get them connected, take them through step by step into using the internet and shopping online, using Zoom, just all aspects of using the internet. I spoke to one lady yesterday in her 80s. She'd never actually used a computer in her life. So I was pleasantly surprised because within half an hour I had her connected using Google, searching the internet, searching the news. I told her to put Donald Trump in, and she she started laughing. She said, "I'd rather give him a thump than look at him." It's quite funny, but she realised just how quickly, because I said to them, "Don't be afraid, just have a go. You know, you're not going to get hurt or anything." So it's rewarding for me. In fact, I find it very humbling and very rewarding because you speak to these people for 10, 15 minutes and it's a lifeline, which is the key really. It is the lifeline and some of them just want to chat.
What were you doing prior to the COVID-19 pandemic to keep in touch with people, and has it changed through your volunteer role?
I use technology quite a lot. Certainly around Christmas time, I've got grandkids, so we use Zoom to speak to them as much as, you know, they're not really that bothered. It's more for me to see them than them to see me. But no, it hasn't changed. I think what it's done is it's made me realise just how important, certainly in the current climate, that the internet is. It does give people a window into the outside world, which ordinarily they wouldn't have.
What has been the benefits for the people that you're supporting? How has it changed their lives? What has improved for them?
I think it's another level of communication. They're speaking to somebody, and I think it gives them, you know, a lot of them have never used them before. It's actually taxing their brain a bit. It's keeping them active. It's getting them motivated to, you know, to get up. Simple things like just making sure you get up and, you know, have a cup of tea, get yourself ready. There's one lady yesterday, you know, she said, "I feel like I'm back in school. You know, you're the teacher," and she was a retired teacher. So funny enough, I actually said I'm going to give her some homework and I'll check up on it next week, which she thought was nice. I think overall it gives them probably a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and there's somebody else to speak to, and it's a new skill they can learn. And once they realise the click of a button, I mean, most of the time yesterday I got her to use the microphone because she was a bit unsure about typing, and she realised how quickly she could just hit the Google microphone and off she went. Shopping as well. A lot of people realise that they can get shopping delivered. So it opens up that world for them. They're not worrying about waiting for someone to go to the shop. It just gives them another. I think overall, it's that communication for their mental health.
Yeah, so mental health has been a huge sort of buzzword through this pandemic, especially with the older community. Have any of them been using it for contact with their healthcare providers? So if they can't get to the surgery because whatever the reason, have they had contact through that?
Yes, I spoke to a gentleman yesterday. He was trying to get online prescriptions, but his biggest problem was that they needed a form to take into the surgery. So he was getting frustrated with it really. So we're just talking through, and I said, look, he was going to the surgery. I said, just take the form in. Once you've done the form, it actually says I read through it, and team viewing is great because I can see where they're struggling and help them. And he'd sat looking at this for days, not understanding really what it meant. So I think there was a bit of stress on him there, but the whole view for him was that he could order his prescriptions online and communicate with the surgery online. So hopefully he's been in today, and by the time we speak to him next week, he'll have that up and running, and we can practice them using that.
So if your people didn't have a computer, smartphone, tablet during lockdown, how do you think they would have coped?
I think they would have struggled because a lot of them, obviously, until they get the vaccination, they're frightened to go out. I mean, one lady, both her daughters live down south, so she was on her own and she was reliant on the phone So although she said, you can chat, she said it's so much nicer, as we're doing now, being able to see somebody when you're talking. I mean, it's not always a good thing, but I think for people that are on their own, it's that daily interaction with somebody else. And I think feeling that, the parts of society, they're not just forgotten about. They've still got an important role to play. And certainly when we sort of opened the door yesterday to using Zoom, although she said, "Oh, I don't know how to use it," I said, "Well, we can do that next week." And I said, it gives you the benefit then that any of your friends online, you can sit and have a chat. Because I think a lot of them want to see a face when they're talking, rather than just a voice. They can actually see who they're talking to and see that reaction, that they actually understand what they're talking about. You've got.
Have you managed to get anybody into a group call yet?
Not yet, no.
How many people is your project supporting, and have you got people coming in daily, weekly to the project?
There must be about 50, and there's a list on our spreadsheet of people waiting for tablets as they become more and more. People don't need them. We've got a lot more that people are using their own, but they want the digital assistance, which is harder because you can't remote.
Yeah.
So it's. Fortunately, I spoke to a lady. I've got my own iPad.
So that was going to be that's my final question. Was, have you found yourself sort of troubleshooting and other problems? So obviously you have, but being able to signpost somebody off to the appropriate service is fantastic. So it's opening up another world for them, which is just amazing.
And they're so appreciative. It's. I wish I'd have done it sooner.
Hi Jackie, I'm Claire. Thanks for chatting with me. Can you just give yourself a quick introduction, please?
Yeah, I'm Jackie Fernandez. I'm the Chief Executive of a charity called Red to Green. I've been a Chief Executive for about 3 years. I've been at Red to Green for about 8.5 years.
Lovely, thank you. So what was your use of technology before the pandemic in your role?
In my role at Red to Green, it was pretty much living off my laptop. We were hooked up to a very antiquated server, which we still are actually, so I'm trying to get some funding for something else. I was always talking about using Microsoft Teams as a way of us actually staying in touch within Red to Green. We have a staff team of about 25 people, I think. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. Most work part-time, so we don't always see each other all of the time. And not everybody can get access to emails, so that was a real big problem. So we were talking about it pre-COVID about getting Microsoft Teams, and I got a consultant in to do a quick recce of Red to Green and people's understanding of IT, which was back then pretty poor. And I was kind of like not confident that Teams would actually work that well. So, but yeah, we were looking at getting something like virtual meetings, but it wasn't being rushed through.
What challenges did the pandemic pose for you in your role and your team?
I mean, for Red to Green, they're pretty high stakes decisions. I mean, in day-to-day life, they're not, but certainly for Red to Green, it was like, shall we shut? At what point should I shut the temporarily shut Red to Green and the services? So it was quite a big decision, and I think quite a lot of people were looking towards me, like both from the board, from above me, and also underneath me from the staff teams. So it's kind of like, oh my God, right, okay. And I was listening to the scientific advice as well. So we started conversations within the board about at what point should we shut. And there were lots of different discussions there at board level. And I think as COVID, it got closer and closer to home, I think. I suddenly decided we need to get people on Teams. We need to find every single device that we got in the building and get Teams on it. And I remember when I did actually make the decision to shut, I was in the head office and I got some staff in saying, look, how much notice do the clients need? And they said about 24 hours notice to know that we're shutting. So I made a decision to shut the following day. And I remember us having this mad panic, just getting every device with Teams on it and giving it out to people. So it was a bit chaotic, but once the decision was made, we knew what to do really. So it was quite a big decision to make, and it's quite important to make sure that the staff team and the board actually knew that we were, you know, this was serious, because it was in the end. And I think some staff members were getting quite worried about their own safety as well within the organisation. So I had to take quite a quick decision for many different reasons. But a lot of people were just not very keen to change. I think there was a lot of fear about changing onto laptops, devices, and then Teams, which was another thing. So yeah, there's a lot of I was going to say there was the inclination was like we didn't need it.
How did the technology and Teams overcome sort of any particular problems that you had?
Yeah, I mean, Teams was interesting. We had our first board meeting, so it was really interesting, because like they were probably the hardest people to change onto Teams, the board. And back then Teams was just showing 2 people on the screen, I think, back then, just pre-lockdown. But we managed to do it, God knows how. I remember sitting in the kitchen at my kitchen table, and I remember one of the board members took a picture of us all saying, I never thought this day would happen, and it was absolutely true. Teams was really, really hard to manage, I think, in hindsight, because it wasn't as good as Zoom. Zoom was already out there showing loads of people, and you could see pretty much all the people in your meeting if you had like 9. And then Teams played catch up, and then I think you could see probably, can you see 9 people on the screen? I don't know. I think so, yeah. But I would still rate Zoom above Teams, actually, because it's far better in terms of I use it in my other jobs as well. But yeah, Teams had to move fast, and we already made the decision to use Teams as well within Red to Green. So it's getting making sure everyone had it on the devices. I arranged some virtual team meetings as well, and was astounded that people got to grips with it very quickly. Like some people who just wouldn't have touched anything to do with IT and said they were IT illiterate. I was stunned that they got involved and they were there at the staff meetings. So yeah, I was really impressed, and I think it built their confidence, just learning how to navigate themselves around Teams and a laptop or whatever. But they were doing really well by the end of it.
So just going back to the board, how often were you meeting beforehand? Did the same regularity continue, but through Teams, or was it more? Was it less?
The board actually have meetings every quarter. So, but in between that, they have other subgroup meetings, and they're quite used to it now. All because of, you know, we had so many subgroups happening as well. We literally, I think still to this day, we had the last board meeting was in March, the next board meeting's in May. That's happening on Teams, and it's absolutely fine, and they haven't got a problem with that. But they've done really well to skill themselves up, and you know, they just get on with it really, and they kind of are doing other meetings virtually in addition to Red to Green, so they've had to skill up whether they liked it or not. And I think a lot of them learned how to skill up on Teams and Zoom just by keeping in touch with their families. Because the first one was really funny. The first board meeting was really funny. I think they forgot they were on camera, so one of them was staring out the window, just vaping away, and then in the middle of a meeting, another one just got up and walked off and got something, and so it was quite funny. But now it's, you know, they're far slicker now.
It's one of those things. It's kind of brought everybody together from all different ages and backgrounds. But we're all now so used to somebody. The doorbell rings, the dog comes running in, the child comes in with a nosebleed. All those sort of things that would sort of be like, oh, horror beforehand, are now just oh yeah, we'll.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think that's just life at working at home. You know, I've just told my kids that I'm doing an interview, but you know, I said only if it's really, really urgent you come in. But in his head, it's urgent for me to get him a can of Coke out of the cupboard. So you know, and that happens. I think people have become far more patient.
So what does technology and the way you've been working, how does that go forward with Red to Green now?
I think we're going to stay virtual, because we're now split across 3 sites actually, aren't we? And of course with the bubbles situation still ongoing, I'm hoping it will end in June. This is the only way we can actually touch base with each other. Some people are doing a mixture still now, working from home as well. So all of my meetings are virtual, very few are face-to-face. You know, hopefully we're looking towards honing our technology. We're going to get an online, a cloud server. And maybe one day we could all get together and have a Barbie somewhere. But, you know, who knows? If that would be nice, we could all get together, because we've kind of missed out on getting together for Christmas parties and stuff like that. So, so it's been tough. I think it's been really tough.
How did you carry on? Obviously, there's certain things that have to carry on, such as training and things. How did that affect Red to Green?
It didn't really, because we just learned. We learned how to use Teams. I think we learned how to share screens. Once we knew how to share screens, that was like, you know, like gold dust, really. So we've done loads of internal training online, and I know the staff team, the frontline staff, have been doing a lot of virtual training from the local authority as well. I don't know how quickly they took to do that. I don't think anyone expected COVID to last this long. When I first decided to shut down Red to Green, I thought, it's going to be about 4 weeks. I think the schools thought the same as well. And then it went on and on and on. And then it suddenly thought, this is just the way of life. We need to kind of get with the programme. So we've been delivering also external training, where Liz has been talking to our corporate funder externally, and also via Teams as well. So it's changed the way we deliver things. It makes it easier to reach more people, which is good, from all over the country and all over the world. Actually, I think we have people from other countries come to a lunch and learn session at ARM. So it does open things up. But, you know, they can be really challenging according to someone's broadband. So, you know.
Yeah, so I'm Stephanie Ward. I am currently a virtual assistant, and I also am the chief executive of a small charity up here in the northeast. So yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So what were you doing prior to March 2020? What have you done between then and now, and how has technology assisted you?
So before March 2020, I was just running my little charity, doing my thing. We used to have a face-to-face support group once a fortnight at the local children's centre, which was aimed at supporting parents of children with additional needs, parent advocacy, putting the power in the parents' hands, that kind of thing. And at the time, my little boy was out of school for his own little reasons. He's autistic himself. So that's partly why I've been running that line of work. So when the pandemic hit, kind of everything just shut overnight, as obviously it did for everybody else. So from March onwards, our focus had a very much shift from being face-to-face support groups and hands-on help for people to going into a more digital offer, which is not something I'd ever done before. We'd occasionally use Zoom for like head office meetings and stuff, because my trustees are like about 20 miles apart, give or take. So it was kind of a case of, right, we are not set up for this. What do we need to do? So we obviously had to change the way we worked, which was interesting. I had previously done freelance work in the past, but virtual assistants became quite a big deal through the pandemic, as I'm sure you've, like, we're a cliche, you know, we are the people who just set up using a laptop from home and then, you know, grew from there.
So just going back to your charity, and you were saying sort of with your board members and stuff, what technology did you put into place and start using to help you run the charity?
Yeah, so we started using Zoom calls to reach out to our like board members probably about February, but it was very rare because generally people all just come to my house and we'll meet in the conservatory because it's a nice space. I've got a big whiteboard there. But yeah, obviously having the go remote, we've had to put Zoom in. And then we very quickly realised that we needed a Zoom licence because we needed more people involved. So we ended up getting a Zoom licence so we could host virtual support calls for families. So we do that 3 times a week on a Monday, a Thursday and a Saturday. We've also started digitising a lot of our physical resources that we used to hand out as well, which has had to be kind of scanned, PDF'd and then uploaded to the internet. So that's something we'd never done before. We do have a tech person, but like that was something she'd never done before, so it was quite time consuming, but it's made a huge difference to the families so that we can still give them what they need without having to see them in the flesh. So that's been quite good.
Yeah, of course. So have you used any new technology, both
Yes.
personally and professionally?
Yes. So in my kind of personal life, I've used Zoom a lot more than I ever did. I've been using FaceTime a lot more, Facebook Messenger. I've also used a lot of like e-learning platforms because I thought, you know what it is, stuck in the house, might as well actually do something. So I've been doing a lot of online training, which is something I've never really engaged with. So that was very interesting to get started on. In my professional life, I've had to basically use a lot more sort of techie stuff, partly because I've never used it before with me not having a business like I have now.
In your various roles, both personal and professional, how has the pandemic affected people you've come into contact with, and how has technology helped you sort of keep in touch with them and help them?
Yeah, I've seen quite a varied impact on people. I've seen a lot of my fellow mum friends who've kind of, the problem I've seen is that women are bearing the burden of the childcare, of the home maintenance. Even if men are working from home, women are kind of taking on the mental load more than ever before. And a lot of mums were very, very distressed, especially having special needs children at home, because even though the special needs schools remained open, the problem is that actually a lot of parents were frightened to send their children to school. So there were some parents who had their kids in mainstream school who, as soon as the pandemic hit, their kids' mental health was much better because they weren't dealing with daily demands. But then you've also got kids who were in the right setting whose mental health deteriorated quite quickly because of the change of setting. I found that Zoom has been really helpful in kind of reaching out to people who are having a rough time. Even just like WhatsApp and text messaging and stuff has been really helpful because it gives that sense of that someone's there. Like people who've been impacted positively that you wouldn't have expected would have had a positive reaction, but then also people who've been quite badly affected who you wouldn't have expected would have been badly affected either. So it's been a challenge as sort of working in the charity sector, having to kind of help people through these things, because the ones you thought would be strong weren't the ones that the ones that we thought were going to need the help weren't the ones that actually needed the help. It's been great to have kind of a digital list of people who I can refer out to, so I don't have to go and kind of like say you need to go to this address or this person and just send them a virtual flyer or whatever. A lot of places have created these virtual publications so people can access the information at home. So that's been really helpful actually.
Have you found that technology has helped the children themselves, either with their schooling or to keep in touch with their friends or whatever way?
Yeah, so what I've actually found, a lot of children on the autism spectrum haven't engaged very well with the virtual learning because
I've heard this.
They like to be around other people. My son was one of these children. He doesn't like learning from home at all. But one thing that I did end up getting roped into, which I enjoyed, but to a point, I was hosting Zoom calls for my son's class because I'm the only one with a Zoom license. And my son's class is a small group of 12 children, and when they're at school, they have 5 members of staff for these 12 children. 2 are non-verbal, 3 are selectively verbal, and the other 7 are just loud, rowdy 8 and 9-year-old boys. And so you had all these kids on the chat, and considering that my son and 2 other children were the main ones doing the talking, it was the loudest Zoom call I have ever been on. But the children really loved being able to see each other. But I've had to really upskill myself to keep up with everything. So on my first day of my big contract, I had a laptop with a keyboard on one side and had an iPad with a keyboard on the other side. And now, as you can probably see in the mirrors behind me, I have a double screen set up. This monitor here, which I'm talking to you on, is actually just a PC. It hasn't got a tower. It's all built into one, which I find amazing. Like they've put all of the bits in the box on the back, and it's a tiny little thing. I think that's fascinating. But yeah, just finding out more like smarter ways of learning, like using tech. So for example, having my split screen. I do a lot of marketing and social media management. So I've learned that you can put like one software, which is your design software, then you can have your scheduling software, then you can have your like Word document open with any text in it, and you can just copy it all over, and it's so fast. And like, I just think with tech, it's been a very steep learning curve to keep up with how everyone else is doing things.
I'm Judith Rice. I'm married with 2 grown-up sons. We live in Swaffham, Bulbeck. I'm age 73 and I used to be a teacher.
So my first question is, what were you doing prior to March 2020 with the COVID-19 pandemic to keep in touch with people? Who and how often?
I used, excuse me while I have my notes, it's important at my age. I used landline phone calls to keep in touch with family and friends. Those are mostly with people who aren't internet users, and mainly in my age group, which is sort of the over 70s. That usually perhaps weekly with family, monthly with friends. I do use WhatsApp for phone calls because they're free, and we have a son who lives in Singapore, so we phone at least monthly using that means. Emails, very regular, again to keep in touch with friends. WhatsApp, to also use WhatsApp messages, that is, to both son in Singapore and son in the UK, and also used WhatsApp to share photos, sometimes email to share photos, and that's it, I think, communication.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So with the WhatsApp, is it just sending photos and phone calls, or do you use the video application on it?
Yes, we have used the video as well. I've only just learned how to do that though.
So do you have a smartphone, and which apps do you have with regards to communication? So we've talked about WhatsApp. Is there anything else?
Yes. Yes, I do have a smartphone. We use it for WhatsApp, BT emails. I use it for text messages, and also taking and accessing photos and putting the photos into albums. And as I mentioned before, also doing some videos, although that's sort of post-pandemic rather than before. And that's to keep in touch with family, friends, and communication with NHS, dentists in particular.
Okay, we're talking on Zoom now. Do you have Zoom on your phone?
Yes, I do, but I have used it, but I prefer to do it on the bigger screen, and I don't need to put my glasses on.
How is your experience of these changed throughout the pandemic?
I feel I've become not dependent, that's probably not the right word, but realise their necessity almost to keep you feeling connected with family, friends, and the outside world in general. And it's all to do with speed, I think, that, you know, you do tend to get immediate response from users, or when you use the apps or whatever. Yes, it definitely has had a positive impact during lockdown. So, for example, I hadn't used Zoom at all before the pandemic. I hadn't used FaceTime, which we've been using a lot. So those two mean Zoom and FaceTime have replaced, or largely replaced, face-to-face meetups. So I've done Zoom church instead of going to real church. And we've used WhatsApp, the village groups, which has enabled us to respond to people needing help or ask for help if we needed it. We've also used it for venue scanning. I didn't even know what a QR code was for that, but I've learned how to scan. And also something that's given us actual pleasure, I think, I would use that word, things like the fitness apps that tells you how many steps you do on your daily walk. We found that My husband doesn't have a smartphone, but he shares mine and keeps pace with me. And we found that sort of a real pleasure, a focus.
So what were your thoughts on computers before the COVID-19? Did you use them?
Very positive. I've always been very aware of what I can't do rather than focusing on what I can do. So I think that's really changed. So I appreciate what I can do, and I'm chuffed to bits when I add on a bit. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. So it gives you a feeling of, I suppose, control. And the other thing I think is that I really value its immediacy, so that you know, often you can get an immediate response, like your emails to me. You know, we exchange that and set this meeting up within minutes, and so I think that's really sort of positive side now. But it's always been there for me. Well, I don't say always, but, you know, for the few years before COVID. They're very positive. One of the things I couldn't find on the PC was the camera. So everybody could hear me, say for Zoom Church, but the screen was black and I just couldn't find the camera. And one day I was cleaning, so I got my duster out and felt along the top, was cleaning the top of the computer screen. And I thought, oh, what's that? And up popped the camera.
Oh, okay.
Which popped up on top of the screen. So things that's caused me amusement. You have to laugh at yourself, don't you?
If you didn't use a computer, smartphone during lockdown, how do you think you would have coped with lockdown?
Much less well. Because I'm the only one, it's just my husband and I at home, and because he doesn't use anything technological, it is down to me, and we've become really quite dependent on that means of communication. We have a sister-in-law who's just a couple of years older but still in her 70s, and she was just this morning saying that she feels powerless because she doesn't use technology. Everything is trying to be done longhand, so phoning the doctor, writing, you know, posting, and she feels a real sense of frustration and isolation, but equally she's unwilling to learn and move forward.
Okay.
So it's not loneliness. She wouldn't use that word, but it is this feeling of being powerless if you don't have technology.
So what do you use your computer now for?
All right, it's quite a long list.
Okay.
Not games, not games. I don't do any games on it. Communication is still the first one I would write down. Accessing news, local and world news. With a son living abroad, we really value getting world news, and sometimes, obviously, computers are quick doing that rather than television. Shopping apps. I have a lot of apps linked to local and national stores, which I find very useful. The weather regularly. You know, is it going to be nice for our afternoon walk? Do I need a hat?
Yes.
So the weather app. I used to use it, and of course haven't at the moment, for booking holidays. But I do book National Trust visits. We live close to Anglesey Abbey, and we have to book our visits. We go once a week. I do that online. And then the vaccine appointments came through by text message.
Oh, excellent.
So I've got the NHS app. So if I had any COVID symptoms, which fortunately I haven't, I could put them on there. So that's what I use it for at the moment. Thank you, because I really enjoyed actually looking at the questions, and it made me think, you know, sort of assess my usage of technology, and actually it's made me feel a little bit more proud of what I have achieved over the last year, which I wouldn't have done otherwise. But there are positives.
Yes, my name's Sandra. I'm 70 years of age. I am retired and I live in sheltered accommodation.
What were you doing before March 2020, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, to keep in touch with people? Who was it and how often?
Well, I would see people. I would see my daughter, I'd see my son, I'd see my friends, I'd go out to lunch, I'd go out to coffee. I belonged to a church in Newmarket, and I'd meet people from the church and go to meetings, etc. So I'd really see people mainly in person.
So the lockdown had quite an impact on your sort of daily activities and your style of life.
It has, and it's actually caused me a little bit of upset, because I had a breakdown in late 90s where I became agoraphobic and was struggling to get out of the house. Had a mental breakdown. I was struggling to get out of the house, and I felt, certainly during the first lockdown, that I was feeling very similar to that again, a bit like I was becoming agoraphobic and only wanted to be at home, which was hard.
Do you have a smartphone, and what apps do you have and use with regards to communication?
I do have a smartphone, and I use WhatsApp a lot. I use Messenger. I do use Facebook a lot to keep in contact with family, and I use Zoom, and I'm trying to think what else, and I do use Teams as well.
Do you have a favourite kind of app to use for video calling?
WhatsApp. I like WhatsApp. WhatsApp is easy,
no,
and I think it's free as well.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I really didn't understand was about the data usage and everything, because I know I pay for my phone each month, but I didn't realise that certain things you get charged for, and you get. Do you know what I mean? I didn't realise that different things you get charged for. I thought, like I didn't. I know that iPhone to iPhone is free, but if I send photos and things to other people, I can get charged. I didn't realise that. What my daughter and my granddaughter set up was a group chat, so we all are on a group chat, so we can send messages to each other, or we can do an audio call with all of us on. It's quite good. We didn't have that before, but we started that at the when it started in March.
Has the use of technology had a positive impact on your daily life during lockdown? What else have you used for?
Absolutely. I'd have been lost without it. I've done my food ordering. I would never have ordered anything online before. I've ordered food, I ordered birthday presents, I've ordered cards, I've sent flowers. I've done a lot of stuff via my phone, and I wouldn't have done that before. It wouldn't have happened before. And the other one I use quite often is Messenger. My sister and I, we message on Messenger, but there's a video you can do on Messenger as well, and I use that when I talk to her. I use Messenger when I talk to her. And my grandchildren want to do on WhatsApp, but I do weekly. I am part of a ladies where we do a Zoom, where we would have a Zoom meeting where there can be 9 to 12 of us on the Zoom, and also with the church, there's weekly meetings, and I would do that on my Zoom as well. I'd have that on Zoom.
Oh, lovely. Sounds like you're keeping in touch with people.
Well, I've only since this pandemic I've had to learn how to do these things. I'm not great with technology, but I've had to learn, because if I haven't, I wouldn't have been able to see people. Friends and family shown me and have talked me through it. My granddaughters have talked me through it and shown me what to do. I've had to learn about settings, switching on things, switching off things on my phone, which I'm just not good with things like that. My iPad that I've got now, which I'm using now, is that was bought for me, and it was bought secondhand, and I only just realised that Microsoft have stopped supporting. I've got an iPad 4 and Microsoft stopped supporting it and things like that, and I'm just learning about things like that as I'm going along, because I didn't. Usually it's my granddaughters, the youngsters, that are teaching me. I think the biggest hurdle I've overcome has been not being frightened to do it, because I used to be fearful that if I press the wrong button, I'm going to delete everything. And it's just stop being frightened of technology, you know, because there's nothing to be frightened of, because I'm not going to delete it. It's, you know, there isn't anything I can do other if I suppose if I press reset, I know if I press reset, I will lose everything. It'll go back to a factory setting. I've learnt that. So I know that I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to lose everything.
If you didn't use a computer, your smartphone, iPad, etc., during lockdown, how do you think you would have coped?
I don't know. I wouldn't like to think about it, because I don't think I would have coped. I mean, I'm not coping very well this second time, as well as I was the first time. I don't think I would have coped very well. If I couldn't have seen people, I wouldn't have. I think I would have probably mentally not been well by this time.
No, this seems to have been a big part of this. It has been sort of the loneliness and the isolation of people.
Yeah.
And although we can all override and put sense to things, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah.
But there's still those inner feelings, and we're communal people.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show sort of what we do need in life.
I've had my Zoom earlier. It just lifts my spirits. I just feel a bit. It just lifts me. Talking to you now, it just gives me a lift, because I've seen someone different and I'm talking to someone different, and it just lifts your spirits, and I just feel quite lifted by it, and it makes me feel okay. I'm going to get through this. I will get to the end of it.
I started in May 2004, and I am the administrator, receptionist, and that takes on a lot of different forms, with answering calls and having different things from that. Pre-COVID-19, I was on a desktop computer in the office, and I would say I had a more forward-facing role with both the services and the general public. And in my personal life, I would go see people, and I would use the phone, and we did use email, but nowhere near like we have since the pandemic hit. I got a laptop, and I was sent home to work for some of it. We got a new phone system at work that so now I'm able to take calls for the office whilst at home. I was furloughed for some of it, and to start with, that was because obviously I couldn't do my role, the forward-facing role within the office, because I wasn't here. And then as time progressed, I was doing the work, set up my dining table, which, as nice as it was, becomes very tedious towards the end, and I am so thrilled to be back at work.
When the adaptations were made for everybody to be able to work comfortably, I think one of the main changes that I noticed was Microsoft Teams coming in. And so I assume that that is something that you wouldn't have used before. Is that right?
No, yeah. We'd never even touched Teams, but almost sprang up overnight that everything now it's and everybody has adapted quite well, but everybody is so much more available.
Yes.
Even being part-time, people can still message me on there, and there is a wealth of information that's kept on in files on Teams, so that you can find anything quite easily.
And going forward, if you were to ask to continue to use Microsoft Teams, either in this job or if you were to go on to another company and use Teams, how comfortable do you feel like you might be?
A lot more proficient a user now than I was pre-pandemic. I'd never even heard of the concept of Teams, but almost overnight we were all on Teams, and now we're all uploading files and we're all sharing information, and it's a great tool to be able to use. I can now see work colleagues and discuss stuff, and they can show me what the actual problem is without me physically having to be there.
And then I guess on the other side of that, with your social life, family and friends and that kind of thing, what sort of changes, if any, have been made with the way that you communicate with them now and see them?
Unfortunately, a lot of my friends don't have the equipment or Teams on their phone, or there's been a lot of Zoom. There's a lot of Zoom meetings going on, and catch ups that way. And both my children do. They've had Zoom brownies and Zoom rainbows, and although that is good, it doesn't replace the real thing. And I think that it will add a new dimension to life, but it still won't replace meeting people. And I felt, because for the first lockdown I was shielding, I found that particularly hard. That there's nothing like the physical interaction with people, and I know that it couldn't be, but a screen doesn't replace the physical person.
If something like this was to happen again, God forbid, do you think that would change the way that you, in any way that you might communicate with people to help yourself along with feeling really isolated, if should you have to be shielded again? Or do you think that there might be other coping strategies that you would use? Or
I just think it would be a lot more Zoom conversations and WhatsApp. If we are fortunate for anything, it is that it's happened in this century where we're so far advanced with the technologies that we are able to do this, because I can't imagine that 10, 15 years ago this would have been able to go ahead. And you've got to think then that although I realise and appreciate everybody's mental health is struggling, I think it would have been a breaking point if we didn't have the technologies that are in place now.
I used to message people and on Messenger, sometimes for Facebook, but not very often.
Okay. Do you have any other apps on your phone for communication?
WhatsApp.
So WhatsApp. What did you use that for?
That's our family, extended family. My mum's now 93, And when my father was alive at the beginning of the year, about 2 years, I think it was, previous to that, they had a wedding anniversary, a big one, 70th. And so we needed to get in touch with each other. So my nephew set it up and we've all connected on it. One of my nephews, the other ones, and he tried to get a video set up, but none of us could figure it out. So not very good.
So how often were you kind of keeping in touch with people through WhatsApp?
It wasn't that often after they'd had the get together, but I suppose this last year, so from just before January really, but during all the COVID stuff, we've been in touch a lot more because Mum lives alone now. Right. And so we've been contacting her, everybody else apart from her, so we can discuss what help she needs and things like that without her realising it. Being alone and being isolated, I mean, she's at risk and I'm at risk, and so is my other sister. We can't all go rushing around to visit her and everything. My niece goes over fairly often, but they stay 6 feet apart from each other, you know. So she's missing an awful lot of family contact, and she's using that so she can see everybody and everybody can see her.
So my next question is, has the use of technology had a positive impact on your daily life during lockdown? And what else have you used technology for?
Right, okay, well, it has a positive because I can't get out much these days, wheelchair bound, so not being able to get and see people, I now contact people a lot more than I ever did before, so that's got to be a positive. And I also use Facebook on my Android. I don't get on there very often, but when I do, it's nice to contact people that I know, people I've met, and so that's helped. That's always positive.
Have you had to have any medical kind of contact with anybody? And how has that gone with the use of technology?
Right, yes, I've got online doctor access. So whenever I need prescriptions, I repeat online. And anything I need that's not on my repeats, I message them. They then will phone me, and I've had a lot of phone conversations with doctors and now specialists about going in on the 30th to have some tests done and things like that. So I use it an awful lot for that, and I do my shopping online. I have been doing that for quite some time because I can't get out much. So I used to teach IT and lots of technology stuff, and I was amazed how many people actually can't get it, no matter how easy it is. They just don't understand it. So
that leads really nicely to my next question. What were your thoughts on computers before COVID?
Well, I was an IT NVQ assessor at the university. I ran a department there for it, and I've always been computer bogged. I started programming when I was 18. Didn't get too far, but I used to still after that write my own batch files and everything, and sort computers out. And when I went to live in France, I was actually putting people's computers right and sorting out their systems. I used to be able to take desktops, towers apart and replace items and things like that. And I find it very frustrating that Microsoft won't let me get into its innards anymore, and that a laptop or a tablet, I can't undo them and say, do this, do that.
Yeah. Do you use your technology, whether it's your computer, a tablet, your phone? What do you use it mostly for now during lockdown?
Keeping up with the information that's out there. I do a lot of searches, and I also do online courses. So for the last since COVID started, just before then, that was when I started to get quite ill. I hadn't been able to do any online courses. So my head's a bit clearer now that I've made up some of that energy that I didn't have. So yes, I've studied an awful lot. I've done loads of scientific courses, even one on COVID, testing and tracing and things. So.